recorded on this computer. Okay. So public key encryption. Also, lecture 4 should be uploaded at some point tonight. Sorry, I've been lagging on that. It takes a while to upload, and it's been a little bit crazy the past couple weeks. So, public key encryption. So we're going to do an overview of public key encryption, talk a little bit about the semantic security of public key encryption, talk a little bit about chosen plaintext attack security for public key encryption, talk about chosen ciphertext attack security, and then talk about one of my personal favorite things in cryptography, which is Shamir secret sharing. So that is going to be this part of the lecture. Great. So overview. So as a recap, the last time we had lecture together, we discussed an example of how we can share secret keys, quote unquote, in the clear using trapdoor functions. This allows us to, potentially reuse our symmetric key cryptography protocols to exchange information in public. We also discussed 2 real-world examples of key exchange in Diffie-Hellman and RSA protocols. In the lecture prior to that, we actually introduced the notion of asymmetric encryption, outlined its basics, and today we're going to dive into its deeper mechanisms and some of its security. So public key encryption overview. So I guess, yeah, first, any questions on this recap? I'll give that 20 seconds. Okay. So public key encryption overview. We have our friend Alice, and we have her friend Bob. They can both generate their own public key and secret key. Alice can then send a ciphertext C that was encrypted using Bob's public key on a message M, and that will produce a ciphertext. Then Bob can decrypt that message using the decrypt function with the secret key and the ciphertext to produce a message M. So what does that look like? Let's come up with an example. So let's say our public key, let's say our, find the right pen. Sorry, Zoom is being a little bit buggy right now. There we go. So we have our, let's say our public key is 1, 0, 1, 1, and our secret key is 1, 1, 1, 0, and our message is okay. What the, let's say our ciphertext is ampersand $, capital L. So the encryption function will receive Bob's public key. So that'll go right here. And then it'll receive the message M, which will go right here. And it will output a ciphertext C, which goes here. Now, what's important about this is that, one of the keys is that it's asymmetric. You might hear public key cryptography referred to as asymmetric cryptography. And what that means is that if you try to call the decrypt function on the public key, it won't be able to decrypt properly. It'll only decrypt properly if you use the secret key. And so once we have that, that goes there, then we have, we'll use a different color. We'll use purple. We have our decrypt function, which takes in a secret key, which comes all the way from over here. And it takes in a ciphertext, which comes here. And it outputs a message M. And for our correctness requirement, it's required that if we call, put that down here, if we call D on our secret key, so 1110, and on our public key with our message hey, that should equal hey. So that's our correctness requirement. So any questions on this mechanism and how it works? Happy to wait a minute on that. Hopefully this format's starting to feel more familiar. So I'm seeing a message, we can't scroll. There it is. Does the generator produce the same secret key? So that's a great question. So this generator, its output is indistinguishable from a uniform random sample. So every time you call the generator, you get a different public key, secret key pairing. And each secret key should only work for one public key. So great question, James. Did I answer that? Great. I think we'll keep heading forward. So let's clear the drawings. Back to mouse. So what are some of the benefits of using public key encryption? Well, the first, we kind of alluded to this earlier, it's often referred to as asymmetric encryption because the encryptor and the decryptor use different keys, unlike symmetric encryption, which uses the same keys. So let's kind of flesh this out for a moment with an example. So let's say we're doing one-time pads. Can someone in the chat give me a message, a 5-character message, message of ones and zeros? We want to encrypt with a one-time pad. Great. 1 0 0 1 1. Could someone else give me a secret key, or just actually a key that we should be used to encrypt this message? 0 1 1 0 1. Now, if we recall, the one-time pad is message exclusive or key. So does anyone want to take a brave stab in the chat at being the one to encrypt our message with our secret key? Okay. Great. So you all are getting this right. So 1 exclusive or 0 is 1. 0 exclusive OR 1 is 1, 0 exclusive OR 1 is 1, 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, and 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0. Now, what's notable about this is that this key is the same key used to encrypt the message as we will to decrypt the message, right? Because to decrypt equals the ciphertext XOR K, and 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0, 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0, 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, and 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1. So that's interesting, right? Like with this kind of symmetric key cryptography, we use the same K for both encrypting and decrypting. That means that if the adversary figured out the key that you used to encrypt, they also now know the key you used to decrypt. And what that means is that every time you want to share a message with a person, you have to get together with that person and come up with a secret key together by either encrypting it in the clear or by encrypting it through either encrypting it in the clear, by going through the clear and actually using Diffie-Hellman key exchange, or something like RSA to do your key exchange, or instead, you could just pass nodes to each other in class. So this key being the same thing is like a pretty glaring weakness in cryptography. So it'd be really cool if we could find a way to detach the key we use to encrypt from the key that we use to decrypt. So just kind of really hitting that motivation, making it clear. We want these two start items to use different keys. So let's continue. Another benefit is after the public key is as securely obtained, there's only one interaction required to send a message. So, if we have our little adversary, or sorry, our friend Alice and our friend Bob, once you know the public key, it's just one shot to send the message. It's not something like, encrypt it bit by bit or anything like that. You can just encrypt the message because your encryption function becomes public. And if you think about the scale of the internet, I mean, like 500 million people a day use Zoom. You can imagine that that's, 500 million potentially interactions of people securely exchanging keys every day. If we can take the number of messages from 5 messages to 1 message, that's like a 200 million times the length of a message, 128 bits. I mean, that's like terabytes of data you're saving on the internet. So this efficiency is not to be overlooked. Another benefit is we can reuse the public key many times, right? So if you have symmetric key cryptography and student 1 shares a secret with student 2, they need a different secret for student 1 to shares a message with student 3. So this is true of symmetric key cryptography, right? You need a unique secret for each pairing of people you're discussing this with. However, with public key cryptography, anyone with the public key, and send message to its owner, we can decrypt with the corresponding secret key. And if you think about like the world we live in, right? I mean, you need to email people who you might not know in advance. And so by having these kind of public key encryption, you know, benefits, we're able to get around having to have all this extra interactions, which is kind of cool. Lastly, yeah, so I'm going to just discuss this. Anyone can post, you know, their public key for anyone to use, which is pretty cool. So are there any questions on the public key encryption benefits? I'll give you guys maybe 35, 40 seconds to think about that. Okay. So with that, let's get into semantic security. So a quick review. Can anyone in the chat tell me what semantic security is? Security that is sufficient. Yep. So you are entering the ballpark, Jared. That's pretty close. So what semantic security is the intuition of it is that the probability that a computationally bounded adversary can learn anything about a message from its ciphertext, and a message from its ciphertext is negligible. So that's pretty on target. And semantic security guarantees that a message cannot be recovered from a ciphertext. To kind of just flesh it out a little bit more. So the public key semantic security attack game. So we have an adversary A, and we have a challenger C. The challenger will generate a public key and a secret key. They will then send the public key to the adversary. The adversary will then send two messages, M0 and M1. The challenger will then pick a number, 0 or 1. Then they will encrypt the corresponding message with their secret key. Sorry, with their secret key. And then they ask the adversary to, given that ciphertext, determine which message was encrypted. So I'm going to pause for a couple seconds and, check for any questions. Oh, sorry. This should be encrypted with the secret key, not the public key. Let me just, yeah, sorry. That was a mistake on the slide. I just realized. So this is not secret key. That is supposed to be public key. Sorry about that. So they encrypt with the public key. And it's important to note here that this encryption function is not deterministic. So I'll make a correction to the slides. I'll make that post online. So with that, with that correction, okay, instead of semantic security. So with that correction, is that correction? So yeah, they're encrypting with the public key, Jared. Sorry about that confusion. Okay. Not hearing any questions about semantic security. So just kind of, yeah, so if B prime equals B, the adversary wins. So let's take an example. Let's kind of show some examples here. So let's say PK equals 100, 1,000, SK equals negative 169, message 0 equals maybe aloha, message 1 equals hello. And then let's choose a bit, 0 or 1, I'll pick 1. I'll pick 1. And so that means we are encrypting message 1. So our ciphertext is some combination of hello and our public key, which gives us maybe something like that. And given, so all the adversary knows at this point is the adversary knows this, and they know this. And their job is to make a guess, B prime. And we say something is semantically secure if B prime is not equal B, and it is semantically secure. If B prime equals B, then we are not semantically secure, because that means the adversary can learn something about the game. And the key is that the advantage has to be greater than, a trivial, it has to be greater than trivial. So I give a 50-50 shot of guessing this correctly. There's no way for, to get around that 50-50 shot. But if you have a better than 50-50 shot, then that means you have somewhat of a significant advantage. Okay. So that is the attack game for semantic security for public keys. Now there's a couple of nice, pieces of this, but they require something. They require some randomization. So for public key semantic security, the encryption function must be random. And hint, the homework assignment I'm releasing tomorrow, I'm going to be asking questions about how to construct an attack if the encryption function is not random. So are there any questions on semantic security or anything about public key encryption so far? Not from Jared. All right. Quiet bunch today. No worries. Let's take maybe sure thing, Marglan. So back here on this example, we're going to go through the actual mechanisms of the security later in the lecture. But on the previous example, right, to decrypt, right, decryption takes a ciphertext, which might be was something like that, and uses a secret key, which I believe was -169, and outputs hello. So that's how you pass in the values to the decryption function. And Margon, we're going to get into an example of how to use secret keys to decrypt something. So with that, I think maybe we'll take a quick 5-minute break. So we'll reconvene at 6:30 p.m. So in 5 minutes, and give y'all a chance to charge up and think about any questions you might have. So I've just paused share, and we'll look at a code example in a little bit, Jared. Thank you. All right, we are back together, class. Resume share. Great. Okay, so we just reviewed semantic security. Now let's talk about chosen plain text attack security. Oh, I lost the chat. There it is. Okay, so public key Cpa security. In symmetric key schemes, semantic security does not imply Cpa security. But in public key schemes, the intuition is that the attacker cannot encrypt their own messages into their own ciphertexts because they don't have access to the key. But in the public key setting, the adversary doesn't even need to interact with the challenger to get ciphertexts. So the public key CPI attack game, we have an adversary, we have a challenger. The adversary generates a public key and a secret key. Challenger sends PK over. They send a message 0 and a message 1. And the challenger generates the encryption of either message 0 or message 1. And the cycle continues. This is how you would play the public key chosen plain text attack game. And right, B prime is outputted, and B prime equals B, the adversary wins. But you actually get CPA security from semantic security because the adversary can do this in they can do this in the semantic security game because they have access to the encryption function. Are there any questions on that concept? Oh yeah, great question, Jason. This is another position where this should not be SK. This should be the public key. Sorry about that. Always encrypting with the public key, always decrypting with the secret key. Just when I made my slides, I must have miscopied something a couple times. So sorry about that. Okay. With that, let's keep moving forward. So that's kind of all there really is to the public key CPA game. Let's talk about chosen ciphertext attack security. So again, it's chosen ciphertext, the motivation here. Imagine the homework by email and require that everyone encrypts their homework with my public key, PK. Well, what if another student intersected the stream of data and flipped bits until the submission read as, instead of reading from student 1, it reads as from student 2. So we need our systems to be secure against adversaries generating valid ciphertext. Ideally, no adversary can generate a valid ciphertext. So let's talk about Cca Construction. So, Jared, you wanted the code earlier? Here's the code portion of lecture. So we have X sampled at random from the X space. Then F is a trapdoor function. Right? F is the trapdoor. And out of that, we get Y. So from the trapdoor, we get Y. Then we generate our key K by running the hash. And this is the collision resistant hash. This is collision resistant. and that produces a key K. And then we apply our encryption function to the message with the key K, resulting in C. At encryption comes C and Y. Then we have decryption. With decryption, we access our trapdoor inversion function, and our trapdoor inversion function takes the secret key in Y and produces X. So you can think about, let me just pick a different color, maybe red. So all of these systems, this is our trapdoor function primitive outlined in red. And then we use our derived X to generate our key K. And then we use that to generate our ciphertext or decrypt our text. And because of the properties guaranteed to us, we have a little symmetric key encryption here if we want to, and a little symmetric key decryption if we want to. So what does that mean? That means we can think about this in terms of a one-time pad if we want to. So how would this work? Let's pretend X equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We apply our trapdoor function to X with our public key. That produces this. You know what? We'll make our trapdoor. Yeah, we'll make it like that. Then we apply the hash of X to give us K. And that gives us something like that. Then our message is that 0, 1. And then that makes our ciphertext equal to our ciphertext is then equal to those two. So 1, 0, 1s or 1, 0, 0s or 0, 0, 1s or 1, 0, 1s or 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0. And then for our decryption, we invert the trapdoor with Y. So X also equals the inversion of the secret key with Y, which is 412 341, which equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We generate K again. And then with K, we can do K exclusive OR the ciphertext. K XOR C equals 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. So that's kind of the process you can use to actually to do this public key encryption. That is chosen ciphertext attack secure. So brief moment. Are there any questions? I'd be surprised if there weren't a couple questions. So I'm going to give that maybe 45 seconds. Great question, David. Collision resistant means if I make the h of x and the h of y, h of x h of x does not equal h of y. If your hash function was just if h of x equals x mod 10, then h of 11 equals h of 21 equals 1. This would be a very bad hash function because this hash function is not collision resistant up here. So when we say it's collision resistant, you know, h of 11 would never equal h of 21. Does that make sense, David? All right, I'll keep waiting maybe another 30 seconds, 45 seconds for any other questions. So the trapdoor function is what we discussed in the previous lecture. And what the trapdoor function allows for is what the trapdoor function allows for is you can basically reverse a hash function is kind of the way to think about it. So, you know, that's the way to think about the hash door. Think of it like by passing in this secret key, you can actually reverse the hash function. James' question. Does that make sense, Jared, before I move on to James's question? Okay, great. And if you want to refresh your Jared, the last lecture, the video lecture, you can find that online. James, would the other person who has to have the cipher have the same function? Yes. So as part of the protocol, so as part of your system, you would collectively define which hash function you're going to use. So in the protocol, change color because everything's blue. Actually, we'll go with dark red text. So protocol defines G, which generates the public key and the secret key, H, F, I, E, D. Kind of like, can you explain what you mean there, James, by handing a note to one another directly? Okay, yeah, kind of. Yeah, so when you say, so you'd say like, oh, hey, Rohit, I'm rolling with Cca 17 as my encryption. And I would know Cca 17 corresponds to a certain hash function. Now, a couple of important things to note about these hash functions, and we'll get more into this later. We model these as like kind of like random oracles, or as like perfect hash functions that never collide. This property in reality is like very hard, and almost every hash function has collisions. In fact, I think one of the weaknesses of the MD5 function, hash function, was its collisions. So this is a very, this is a hard property. To achieve, as emphasized by the difficulty of spelling out hard with the highlighter. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions about this, so if it's all right with y'all, I think we'll move on to what I think is super, super cool, and that is Shamir secret key sharing. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop sharing. So Shamir secret sharing is, first let's motivate it. So suppose you have a secret you want to share with your friends, but you only want your friends to be able to unlock the secret if they're all together. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a mathematical way to ensure they can unlock the secret if they're all together? So the way this works is by using polynomial interpolation. This just says, if you have 2 points, you can find a unique line that intersects them. If you have 3 points, you can find your unique parabola and so on. You can encode your secret somewhere along a function and then tell all of your friends a different point along the curve expressed by the function. And if enough of your friends get together, they can figure out the exact curve and find a secret. So let's say I have 2 friends. My 2 friends are, you guessed it, Alice and Bob. And my secret is that I am 6 feet tall. So in the graph, I'm going to code my secret on the origin. So right here is my secret. And I'm going to give Alice this point, and I'm going to give Bob this point. And I'll give Eve this point. So now my 3 friends, Alice, Bob, and Eve all have 1 point. So if Alice and Eve get together, they can construct a secret by figuring out the line function. If Alice and Bob get together, they can figure out the secret by finding the origin. And if all 3 of them get together, well, of course they can find the secret because they know they're all on a line. I think that's incredibly elegant. Any questions on this kind of like Shamir secret sharing? I'll give you guys a minute since this is kind of a complicated concept. Yep. And that's actually the point, Jared, is that it's beneficial that you can figure out the secret with B and E. Now, if you were just on your own, then you wouldn't be able to figure out the secret. So if you were just Bob, you know, Bob alone can't figure out the secret. But if Bob and Eve get together, then they can find the secret. And what's really cool is if Bob forgets his key, I can generate Bob a new key from, you know, one of the infinite keys along my key generation function. No, in this case, it's just 2 people. So to kind of give an example of the parabola case that was alluded to, the parabola case would look like this. Something along the lines of, let's say I have some children and I want both children, if they want to unlock my will, they need to be together. That's something that I want as an old person when I pass. What you could do is you can encode your secret here. You could say, you know, you need at least 2 people present. So you want all 3 kids to be present to figure out the secret. So then you draw your little encryption parabola, because you need 3 points to determine a parabola. And then you give, you know, you give 1 kid this secret, 1 kid this secret, and 1 kid this secret. And all 3 kids need to work together to figure out the PO box number associated with the will or with the key. So I think that's really cool. Can I see some thumbs up in the chat if folks feel like they understand this polynomial interpolation and Shamir secret key sharing? All right, that's really great. All right, that concludes the first part of lecture. Let's look at second part of lecture. Okay, stop sharing. Quit that. Get ourselves to zoom correctly. Share screen. Okay. So digital signatures. Overview. Then we'll go over the trapdoor construction of digital signatures. And then we will discuss the legality of digital signatures. One of my favorite parts of cryptography is these weird legal implications. So first, an overview. Let's pretend, sorry. Come on. Sorry, this doc keeps appearing and ruining my ability to see the chat. Great. Okay, let's pretend you are a software company. And occasionally you distribute updates to your software. The customers need a way to verify that the software is really from the company without sharing a secret with every single customer. Enter digital signatures. So by digitally signing your software updates, you can ensure that consumers can verify the software is coming from you. So how does the attack game work? Well, we have Alice and Bob. Bob has his public key and secret key. Bob sends a public key to Alice. Alice sends back a message. Bob signs that message, and this repeats as many times as Alice likes. Then Alice sends a message and a signature, and if the verification of the message equals the signature, then we know that Alice can forge signatures. So as a general, let's go make some drawings. So here we have the public key, this message process, right? Message 1, message 2, message 3. All the I denotes is that these are like the same setup. And this secret key is only known by Bob. And, oh, shoot. Oh, man. Yeah, the secret key is only known by Bob. And to verify, it's not the secret key. It's the public key. Sorry about that. Mixed up my S's and P's earlier today, clearly. So to verify, you check the public key. We'll just make a note to change that. Okay. Are there any questions on this attack game or how digital signatures work? I'll give it maybe 30 seconds. So Alice is not guessing the verification function, James. What Alice is doing is Alice is trying to find a way to forge signatures. So, whether or not Alice can verify, Alice knows the verification function. That's public. Anyone can verify the signature is real. What not everyone can do is generate signatures. Does that make sense, James? All right. Okay. I will go ahead and clear and move on. So they have this property of non-repudiation. There's no way to deny that a signature, there's no way to deny the signature was produced by someone with access to the key. Sorry, this was not thing. Right? There's no way to deny that the signature was produced by someone with access to the secret key. No way to deny that. That's for sure true. And this sounds legally useful, right? There's some kind of implication that would recognize legally. Unfortunately, it's very easy for someone to either claim that the public key isn't theirs or that their secret key was compromised, whether it was exposed, leaked, stolen by a hacker, etc. In fact, even maliciously, Alice could have leaked her key right after or before sending a signature. So even though non-repudiation exists, it's not often useful as a property for like legal things. Limits, so binding signatures, it's easy for a signer to send multiple contradicting messages. So what if I signed, you get a 10 out of 10 on assignment 1, signed by Rohit. And then, I also wrote, you get a 4 out of 10 on assignment 1. It's true that I signed both of these messages. Like that much is very obvious. But which message do you trust, right? That's kind of sketchy. So this is definitely a bit of a problem with digital signatures. And we'll talk more about that later. Duplicate keys, given a signature for a public key PK, could I generate a PK prime, SK prime, M, such that sigma prime equals sigma? So another way of saying that is that the encryption, or sorry, the signing with the secret key of the message is equivalent to the signing of the new secret key to the message. So that's possible. So imagine like I can therefore forge a message and fake a secret key. Like that's kind of forge a signature. Right, so there's this kind of attack as well that's available. So that's not very good. And also, in a future homework question, by the way, I'm going to ask you to figure out. Is there an easy way an easy way to get around these duplicate key attacks. Hint, there is, I'm gonna ask you to construct it. So start thinking about that. So with that, how do we construct these digital signatures? Well, to sign them, we use our collision resistant hash function right here. And here we say y equals the hash of the message. And then the signature is the trapdoor function inversion of the secret key with y. And then to verify, so there should be a comma there. Sorry, imagine a comma in between M and sigma here. And this should be the little sigma sign. So you just apply your trapdoor function with the public key to the signature to get y, and just verify that y is the hash of the message. So you can kind of use the trapdoor there, right? So the trapdoor, I will highlight the trapdoors in green. So this is a part of these. This is our trapdoor system right here. And in red, or not in red, yeah, in red, I'll highlight, this is our collision resistant hash function system. So are there any questions about this trapdoor construction of a digital signature? I'll give that maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes, sorry, 30 seconds. This is utilizing the trapdoor cryptographic primitive we discussed in the previous lecture. Okay, it's about 30 seconds right there. Let's continue and talk about security. So in order to prove security, we must model the hash function as a random oracle. This means that y can be thought as a random point in the space, and there's no way for an attacker to forge its signature. But without this hashing, so the downside to this is that, the fact that we have to model this hash function, as a random oracle means that there's a lot baked into that assumption. In reality, no hash function is equivalent to a random oracle. So that's a weakness in these security schemes. But if we didn't do any hashing, an attacker, so let's talk about what that means. So if we're here, so if we just said, no hashing, that would mean that like h of m equals m. This would be a trivial, a hacker could pretty trivially break security. That's been a homework assignment for y'all to figure out coming up soon here. So the key here is just to understand that you're going to see these hash functions modeled as random oracles whenever you look at proofs about this work in the wild. And this is why, because you need to have the hash function, and that randomness is what's giving you security. Any questions about what random oracles are, or hash functions, or anything like that? Okay. We'll keep rolling then and come to my favorite part of lecture, which is of course, some of this legal stuff. That's always really interesting. So the legality of digital signatures. how has the US government messed this one up? So in 2000, the Congress, the US Congress passed a law known as e-sign or e-signatures. It's got an official name, but that's kind of what people refer to it as. And the goal was to facilitate the use of signatures for interstate commerce. In particular, all sales of goods over $500 require digital signature. And these signatures must contain 3 elements: a symbol or a sound, attached or logically associated digital record, made with the intent to sign the record. Did they succeed? Well, if you type your name, that counts, right? Because typing your name is 1, a symbol or sound, 2, you can attach it to a digital record, and 3, you can make it the intent to sign, so that counts. A digitized picture of a signature has the same problems as the name types. A pen, that works. A mouse click, that works. A sound works. And so does a cryptographic digital signature. Now, in red, I'm going to highlight the ones that are very trivially, in red, I'm going to highlight the ones that you can easily forge. All of this. I mean, a hacker could easily forge these things. Now, in green, I'm going to highlight what's hard to forge. So that's what the US Congress did when they tried to create cybersecurity laws in 2000. So now they didn't do a perfect job. So what did the rest of the world do? Well, the UN adopted digital signatures in the 2005 convention. And they thought they were being clever. So they made some additional requirements, including identifying the signer and make sure they're reliable. So basically, you can still use a mouse click as long as you can prove who clicked the mouse and establish a clear intention behind the click. So, a little better, but still not perfect. Okay, that wraps up our